NFL fans, welcome back to another episode of the J All Day Show. Free agency kicks off next week, but a lot of these players have been getting re-signed already, so I wanted to do one more mock draft before all the craziness starts on Wednesday. The legal tampering period starts tomorrow, but there's been a lot of trades, a lot of signings that are going to influence how each and every one of these teams are going to select this year in the 2025 draft. Let's get into it. All right, NFL fans, do me a huge favor. Hit that like button. It does help us get into the algorithm. And if you like this content, please consider subscribing to the channel. Titans on the board with selection number 1. Could they trade it to the Giants? It's a possibility, but they're probably going to want a lion's share for even moving up 2 spots, I would think. Is it worth it? Probably not, especially because, when I look at these quarterbacks, is Cam Ward going to change your franchise? Is Shedeur Sanders going to change your franchise? I just don't see it, man. For me, last year was the time to move up. And if the Giants were unwilling to move up last year with premium quarterbacks like Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, even a guy like Bo Nix, then why would they move up here? If this was the draft last year, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward would be behind all those guys. They would be 6, 7, 8, something in that range of quarterbacks, right? So I don't think the Giants are going to move up. So Titans are on the board selecting at number 1. For me, it's between Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. And the Titans say all the time, we're not going to pass on a generational talent. I think Abdul Carter could be that guy, guys. They need an edge defender as well. It just makes too much sense. I like Abdul Carter to the Titans with the number 1 pick in the 2025 draft. Cleveland up, number 2 overall. This works out great for them, right? They just re-signed Myles Garrett to an extension, so they weren't going to draft Abdul Carter anyway. So they're getting their man. Cam Ward is going to the Browns at number 2. It's pretty much a no-brainer. Now, this is where things get a little bit interesting. Is Shedeur Sanders worth the number 3 pick overall? I don't think he is, but I think the Giants probably will. Brian Daboll, the coach, and Joe Sheen, the GM, they're on the hot seat, man. If they have another shitbag season, they're toast. They're done. Both of them are going to lose their job. So they're going to pin back their ears. They're going to draft Shedeur Sanders, and they're going to roll the dice, man. Shedeur Sanders is a very accurate quarterback. I think him and Malik Neighbors could play well together. Brian Daboll has done pretty well with quarterbacks, even though Daniel Jones was a dumpster fire, but that was not Brian Daboll's fault. So, Shedeur Sanders goes number 3 to the Giants. Now, Patriots fans, you're on the board. You can go in a myriad of ways here. Do you just draft Travis Hunter and figure it out? Put him next to Christian Gonzalez and have 2 of the best cornerbacks in the NFL? You could absolutely do that. But for me, I think they're going to want to protect Drake May. So I've been going back and forth between Armand Membu and Will Campbell. Will Campbell's got shorter arms, so the projections on him are more likely at guard than tackle in the NFL. Armand Membu is a right tackle, right? So do you want to use the number 4 pick on a right tackle, right? The NFL is kind of evolving, right? So now, right tackles like Lane Johnson are getting paid exceptionally well because instead of defenses putting their best pass rusher against the left tackles, now they just switch them over to the right tackle. But now, these right tackles are getting really good, so they're not going to have to do that, right? So now teams need more balance, right? You can't just have a really good left tackle and forget about your right tackle, right? You need some balance. For me, I think Membu's the pick, man. I really, really do. And he could stay at tackle forever, man. He does everything well. He's a great zone run blocker. The true pass set pass block grade's really good. 86 passing block grade, 90 overall grade, 6'3", 314. He'll probably put on a little size too because he's not even 21 yet, right? So you're getting a guy for 5 years because you have that 5th-year option, right? It's extremely valuable, right? I like this pick. I think it's the way to go. You got to protect Drake May. I know getting a big weapon sounds interesting, but we'll see what happens. Now, at number 5, this pick makes a lot of sense. It's between Mason Graham and Travis Hunter, right? That's probably where the Jaguars go, in my opinion. And their new head coach, I think, could really implement Travis Hunter in creative ways, right? Duval! So we'll see what happens. Travis Hunter, I think he could go out there, be a shutdown corner on day one. And then you package, 15 to 25 plays on offense. And until he proves his body can't handle it or he can't handle it skill-wise, you run him out there at wide receiver. He's a great route runner. He would be an exceptional complement to Brian Thomas Jr., right? So I love this pick. I'm going with Travis Hunter to the Jags at 5. Now, Raiders fans, Geno Smith re-teaming up with Pete Carroll in Vegas. So quarterback out of the question here, in my opinion, right? So now, let's give Geno Smith an exceptional run game. That makes the most sense to me. You could go Mason Graham here. I could see him do that. But Pete Carroll, with this weapon, man, it starts to become a very interesting offense with Brock Bowers. You got Ashton Jeanty. You got Jacoby Myers on the outside. Ashton Jeanty goes to the Raiders at 6 overall. I think that makes a ton of sense there, guys. Jets on the board at number 7. Could they go crazy and bring in Jackson Dart? I don't think so because they have Jordan Travis. I think he went to Florida State, right? I loved his tape in college, man. He was hurt all last year, so he didn't get to play even when Aaron Rodgers was stinking up the joint. For me, it's between Mason Graham. Probably could go Johnny Barron in this spot too. Will Campbell's always interesting, but Mason Graham makes the most sense. The D-line underperformed last year. Mason Graham is a really good run defender. Let's make this Jets defense a staple that it was supposed to be the last couple of years. I like Mason Graham, 7th overall to the Jets. Now, Panthers fans, you could go anywhere. This pick, I've seen it all the way down to Jalen Walker, going 8 overall. I don't like Jalen Walker to the Panthers, and I'll explain why. He can't stop the run for shit. 62.3 overall grade. I don't love that. Missed tackle rate over 10%, coming in at 12%. It's pretty mediocre, man. And I'm not drafting a mediocre guy at number 8. And the most glaring part of all this is he's horrible against the pass. So if you're going to put him in coverage at all, 125.3 rate against, 600th overall, you can't do it. For me, Bryce Young really took a step forward last year. The offensive line actually played pretty damn good. So I'm giving him another weapon on the outside, one that can play all over the formation. You can put Tet McMillan anywhere, in the slot, at the X, at the Y. He can play anywhere. I love Tet McMillan. Give Bryce Young a bona fide number 1 wide receiver with great size, very good speed, 6'5", 212, 22 years of age. I just love this pick. I think Tet McMillan is going to be an exceptional pro. Put on the tape, he was the focal point of that Arizona offense for years. And I think he could be that with the Panthers. I love that pick there. All right, Saints fans, you're up on the board at number 9. Very interesting spot here. Could Jackson Dart go here at number 9? That's interesting as well because Spencer Rattler looked like ass, and so did Derek Carr last year, so maybe they start rebuilding. Wide receiver, that's interesting too. A guy like Matthew Golden could maybe fly up and sneak in there. But for me, everyone's mocking him to the Saints, and I think it just makes a lot of sense. I'm in line with consensus here because I love Tyler Warren. He's a stud, 91 overall grade, focal point of the Nittany Lion offense. 1,230 yards, 8 tutties. Woo, baby. And he crushed it. Look at these games at the end of the year. Really turned it on when it mattered, man. Really, really. He's just so impressive. I love Tyler Warren. I think he's going to be a top 10 tight end the day that he gets drafted. And just like Brock Bowers, he's not as dynamic as Brock is, but I love Tyler Warren's skill set. He could play up. He could line up at running back. He could line up outside. He could line up in the slot, in line, line him up anywhere. Now, Bears fans, you're on the board at number 10. This is going to be the first pick I think where I'm going to scramble some brains. I'm debating on it here, right? So, they brought in Joe Thuney from the Kansas City Chiefs. They added another guard. This team wants to run the football. Their new head coach wants to run the football. He had all that success in Detroit with the two-headed monsters at the running back position. So, is Omarion Hampton in play at number 10? People think that's pretty high for him, and I probably agree. But the dude is a freak show, man. I was so impressed with him at the Combine. His tape doesn't lie either. I'm a big Omarion Hampton fan. If the Bears went Omarion Hampton at number 10, I would not be surprised at all. But edge is a big need for them. And they can get the best edge rusher probably in this draft, James Pierce Jr. He's got all the physical tools. Back-to-back incredible seasons. 21 sacks over his last 2 years. He's unbelievable, man. 71 hurries in the last 2 seasons. He's got it all, man. I like his size, too. 6'5", 243. He's only 21 and a half. He just is so talented. I just don't think the Bears can pass up on him. I love that pick for the Bears at number 10. Now, 49ers fans. It's not looking good in San Francisco right now, man. The team's in disarray. Debo got shipped off to the Commanders. It looks like Brandon Ayuk trade rumors are growing. We haven't heard shit about Christian McCaffrey's health at all this offseason. That definitely concerns me. A lot of people are saying they probably shouldn't play Brock Purdy. He was like 1-6 last year against playoff teams. Is it worth paying him $50 million a year? I don't know, man. It's a tough question to answer, right? I think offensive line is a huge need for them. And Will Campbell, I think his slide stops here. Start him off at tackle, see if those short arms matter, and then you can kick him in the guard if not. And he's got a great mentor to learn from. I like this pick, Will Campbell, to the 49ers at 11. All right, guys, now, Dallas Cowboys fans, you're on the board at number 12. Where do we go here? Edge is in play for sure. So is running back Omarion Hampton. He definitely interests me, but you could probably get a really solid running back for the Cowboys in the second round, so I don't think they go there. Mike Green is on the board as well. But what I really like, I like Donovan Ezraku too, man. He's a dog. I like Luther Burden, man. I really do. Looking at some other wide receivers on the board, Matthew Golden is on the board as well. He looked great at the Combine. Tremendous speed, slot guy. But I think Luther Burden, he's most effective in the slot, but he came in at 6 foot at the Combine. Don't look at these numbers here. Ran great 40 time. And in the inline catching drill, he looked fantastic. His hands looked really good. He's got good contact balance. He's just a yak guy, man. A guy who could really move the chains consistently. Adding that element to that offense with CeeDee Lamb already on the roster makes a ton of sense to me. Luther Burden goes number 12 to the Cowboys. Now, Dolphins fans, you're on the board here. You can go anywhere here, man. But I do like Malachi Starks in this spot for sure. Will Johnson and Kenny Grant definitely pique my interest as well. But I really think, in my heart of hearts, they really want to protect Tua, right? He's one bad hit away from never playing in the NFL again. A lot of people think this might be a reach because of the injury history, but I'm telling you, if you watch the Josh Simmons tape, no one has better tape. He's clean, he's efficient, he's strong, he's physical, man. When he's healthy, he's probably the best tackle in this draft class. And I think he would have went in the top 10 if he didn't get hurt. It all depends on the medicals. If the medicals are great, and I'm assuming they are because we haven't heard otherwise yet. We'll have to see. If he slides in the draft, that means the medicals were not good. But for this exercise sake, I'm going to assume that they are good. And Josh Simmons is going to go to the Dolphins at number 13. Now, Colts fans, you're on the board, and this is where we could go. Johnny Barron is a really talented guy. He could play corner, he could play slot, he could play safety, he could play all over the formation. Malachi Starks is an absolute dog too. It's between those two guys. They need defensive back help for me. Malachi Starks, he's played top tier competition, right? But the second half of the year, not awesome. He played good, not great. Johnny Barron, on the other hand, he played like shit against Ohio State, but for the most part, he played exceptionally well. No touchdowns all year long, and I just love his versatility, man. He was a former track star in college and high school. He can play everywhere, man. He's a great run defender as well. And their scheme, he's pretty scheme versatile because I think he's good enough and fast enough to play man. He doesn't have exceptional speed, so he's probably better in a zone scheme. So that's why I like the fit with the Colts. That zone coverage average at 91 is exceptional. No touchdowns, given up 5 interceptions. And you could put him all over your defense and see where he fits the best, right? And that's why I love this pick. Johnny Barron goes to the Colts at 14. Now, 15 overall, the Falcons are up. They had the worst pass rush in the NFL last year, guys. There's no ifs, ands, or buts around it. They were a dumpster fire. But, God, the more I watch the tape, the more I love Jihaad Campbell. Everyone wants them to go edge, go edge, go edge. But I really think Jihaad Campbell is in play here, man. I really do. And Jihaad Campbell is scheme versatile as well. He could be a 3-4 guy or an off-ball linebacker guy in a 4-3 scheme. Do they go Mike Green or Donovan Ezra? You know what? I'm passing on Mike Green because of those sexual assault charges from a couple years ago. I don't like that. 15 overall, I want a sure thing, and Donovan Ezra has impressed every stretch of the way. Just unbelievably impressive. 46 hits and hurries over the last season, 14 sacks. Played pretty good programs, not the best programs in the world, but he showed out. I like his measurables as well. 6'2", 247. He's a high IQ guy. You know, I think he could play anywhere, but does he fit in their scheme? I'm not 100% sure, right? I don't know. Mike Green probably fits their scheme a little bit better. You know what? So I'm flipping on what I said. I know Mike Green comes with some off-the-field concerns, but I just think he fits their scheme a little bit better. So I think Mike Green is in play for the Falcons at 15. All right, now, the Cardinals are on the board, 16 overall. You know what? For me, they need defensive line help really, really bad. Like, exceptionally bad. They also need offensive line help. Kenny Grant, he's kind of overlooked because a lot of the draft pundits are talking about Mason Graham. But I think Mason Graham was super successful because Kenny Grant was really good too. I really like him, man. And he's such a good run defender, man. He immediately makes them so much better, right? But, I don't know. Does he fit into this scheme? I'm not 100% sure. I don't really think that he's the best fit in this scheme. A guy like Donovan Ezra probably makes a little more sense in this scheme because of the way the Cardinals run their defense, right? So I'm going to go Donovan Ezra to the Cardinals at 16. Now, Bengals fans, you're on the board here. And this is where I really like Malachi Starks in this spot. I like Will Johnson as well. Kenny Grant, I think with some of the departures on the defensive line, they released some guys. Kenny Grant makes a ton of sense for the Bengals. Their defense needs to get better. They were a shit show last year. So let's make that defensive line better. Upgrade them against the run a little bit for sure. Now, Seattle Seahawks. For me, the tea leaves are reading that when they're shipping a guy like Geno Smith to the Raiders, they have a plan in place. Even though the legal tampering period hasn't started yet. I'm assuming, and I think Sam Darnold will be a Seattle Seahawk. It makes total sense. I think he goes there. So now what do they want to do? Are they going to protect him? Do they need another offensive lineman in this spot to make their offensive line better? Do they go edge? Do they go linebacker, right? You know, for me, linebacker makes a ton of sense here, man. Jihaad Campbell. I just love him. I think he's super talented. And he can play in any scheme. I love Jihaad Campbell to the Seahawks at 18. It just makes perfect sense to me. Now, Buccaneers, you're on the board. Malachi Starks makes a ton of sense to me. So does Will Johnson. Both of these guys look really, really good right now. Interior defensive line, I'm not loving it. There's some really talented edge guys still left on the board for sure. For sure, Amarion Hampton's on the board, but they're probably going to go D-back for sure. Linebackers in play. And you know what? I'm doing it. Jalen Walker goes to the Buccaneers at 19. This dude has better upside than pretty much anyone in this draft. He's a physical monster. And then he could learn from a guy like Levante David. They're probably going to bring him back. I love that pick there. They need linebacker help. Jalen Walker goes to the Buccaneers at 19. Now, Broncos fans, you're on the board here at 20 with Javonte Williams being a pending free agent. Running back, it's very interesting here for me. Very interesting, right? Could they go a guy like Colston Loveland, the tight end? That makes a lot of sense. Omarion Hampton makes a lot of sense. Any of these wide receivers like Matthew Golden make a ton of sense. Emeka Ibuka make a ton of sense. They could go wide receiver or they could go tight end. I think they're going to go offensive weapon here for sure. Bo Nix needs another weapon, right? And I'm going to shock some people with this pick. I'm going to Omarion Hampton, right? I think there's some... Actually, no, I'm not. You know what? I think they're going to get a running back in the second round. There's so much depth. Only one of them went off the board. So you know what? I'm sticking with my guns from my original mock drafts. I'm going Colston Loveland to the Broncos. I know, the numbers aren't like pop off the screen, but Michigan's quarterback situation was a dumpster fire, and he still produced with a shitty quarterback. I love Colston Loveland. He could be that joker. Sean Payton keeps talking about the joker. And the joker guy is someone who can line up in the backfield. He can line up in the slot. He can line up in line. I like this pick. He's going to help out Bo Nix tremendously. Now, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, you're on the board. Cornerback makes a ton of sense. I thought their cornerback play was hideous last year, but they could also use a wide receiver. You know, Emeka Ibuka is a very talented guy. So is Matthew Golden. I love Matthew Golden. He was so good in the combine. He impressed pretty much everyone. You know, really took over as the number one option in that offense. But Emeka Ibuka is just too good to pass up. The Steelers get him at 21 overall. Now, 22 overall, Chargers are up. Chargers. The Chargers. Where does Harbaugh go here, guys? Edge makes a lot of sense. They just released Bosa, right? Bosa is a free agent, so I think they're going to go edge here. You go Shamar Stewart or Mykel Williams. Mykel Williams played through a bunch of injuries this year. He's a very talented guy. And Shamar Stewart is a freak show athletically, right? 6'6", 290. Scheme versatile guy. Super athletic. Really young. You know, he's built like an NFL player, man. Could he be a late round one guy? Mykel Williams is probably the better player, right? And he still had a 78.4 grade playing through injuries, which was extremely impressive. 6'5", 265. He's just the better prospect, I think. I think Shamar Stewart is a little more raw. So Mykel Williams goes to the Chargers because they just released Bosa. They need to go on the edge. I like that spot. They can go running back, wide receiver later in the draft. Pick up some more offensive weapons, but these edge guys are going to go fast. Packers fans, you are on the board. Jair Alexander. Is he going to be back? Is he not going to be back? It doesn't seem like it's a great situation. He's always hurt. He's kind of a pain in the ass for that organization. And Will Johnson fell in their lap at 23. I'm not going to think twice about it. Will Johnson goes to the Packers at 23. Amazing selection. Now, Minnesota Vikings fans, you're on the board here at 24. What do the Vikings do? It looks like Sam Darnold's not going to be back, so it's going to be the J.J. McCarthy show here, guys. So, the offensive line's pretty good. They could go guard. You know, Kellen Banks is on the board here. That can make some sense. But for me, they're going to go interior defensive line. Derek Harmon's the best guy left on the board. 6'5", 310. He's only had 1 year of like super solid production, it says, you know, so he's interesting. I like Walter Nolan too. And Darius Alexander's in play, but he's old, man. He'll be like 25 by the time the season starts. So, Vikings fans, Walter Nolan is the guy I like the most. He goes to the Vikings at 24. Now, Texans fans, you're on the board here at 25. This makes perfect sense. Matthew Golden is the slot. They brought in Christian Kirk. He's not a difference maker. They could go Matthew Golden here for sure. Kelvin Banks is definitely in play. They don't need a left tackle, though. So he's only played left tackle in college, so I don't know if that fits for their needs right now. They do need some guard help, though. So a guy like Gray Zabel, who is like the Swiss Army knives of offensive linemen. He could play tackle. He could play center. He could play guard. And their offensive line needs an upgrade tremendously. So I'm doing it, guys. I'm going Gray Zabel. Call me crazy, but Zabel is an absolute monster. I think he's going to be an all-pro at the next level. All right, NFL fans, the Rams are picking at 26 overall. Bringing in Kelvin Banks makes a lot of sense for me. That makes some sense. Linebacker, cornerback, tight end. As I'm looking at their needs right now, I don't know if there's a cornerback I want to bring in. Bringing in a guy like Kelvin Banks and kicking him over to right tackle could be in play. Definitely could be in play there. Malachi Starks definitely interests me as well. Honestly, I think they need another wide receiver. Cooper Kupp's probably going to be gone, and Matthew Golden can take over that role. Puka Nacua on the outside. Let Matthew Golden run around in the slot. I love that pick for the Rams at 26. Now, Ravens fans, you're up 27 overall. We originally thought we were going to have to draft a tackle here, but Ronnie Stanley's going to be back. I think it's on a 3-year deal. So, edge defender makes a ton of sense in this spot. Shamar Stewart is just screaming draft me. Extremely physical guy. I like Shamar Stewart's potential at the NFL level. Working with Harbaugh will be great. I love that spot for Shamar Stewart. Now, 28 overall. Lions fans, you're on the board. Unfortunately, they had tremendous safety play this year, so they don't need safety. Cornerback play, definitely a little bit mediocre for sure. I think edge defender is where they want to go. They need someone to pair up with Aiden Hutchinson, and I love Nick Skelton. He's a very talented guy. Not a ton of production, but he's got all the skills to be a huge asset at the NFL level. 6'4", 285, tremendous size. Not even 21 yet. I love that pick. Dan Campbell is going to love Nick Skelton. Now, Commanders fans, you're on the board, right? And this is where Malachi Starks' fall ends. They need secondary help considerably. Malachi Starks can play anywhere on this defense. They got Sanders Shields. Probably, I don't know if they're going to keep him outside or move him back to the slot. But Starks, I think, could play the slot. He could play both safety positions. I like that pick there for sure. I don't see a corner that I really love and want, or an edge guy that I super love. But they did just lose Jonathan Allen, so interior defensive lineman makes a lot of sense. So let's go Derek Harmon to replace Jonathan Allen, who was just released. I like that pick. But they also need a tackle, man. Kelvin Banks is on the board. I'm all over the place with this pick, guys. Oh, I overlooked Kelvin Banks. You know what? Jaden Daniels. Let's get him a premium left tackle. Can play right tackle. Probably can kick in the guard as well. 6'4", 320. The dude is amazing. He doesn't have the best arm length, so they do think he could play guard, but I think he could be an all-pro guard or a solid NFL tackle. Kelvin Banks is going to protect Jaden Daniels. All right, Buffalo Bills fans, you're on the clock. Pick 30 overall. A lot of spots you could go here. Wide receiver interests me, but so does D-line. Derek Harmon is on the board. Linebacker, Demetrius Knight, he's a dog. He's still on the board as well. Cornerback is on the board as well. Trey Amos could be a very interesting pick here for the Bills at 30, going outside corner. Landon Jackson is a beast. He's still on the board. Nick Emanwari, the safety's on the board. Princely McMillan, he's still on the board as well. Yeah, Trey Amos is definitely interesting for the Buffalo Bills. Definitely interesting. Not really a wide receiver I'm like dying to take at this spot. But interior defensive line, Derek Harmon makes a lot of sense. I don't like drafting Darius Alexander in the first round because you get that fifth-year option with the first-round pick, and he's like going to be 25. He would be 30 by the end of that first contract. I don't love that. Derek Harmon, I'm going with him for the Bills at 30. All right, Chiefs fans, you're on the board, 31 overall. They need offensive line help desperately, but there's no one really in this range that where you're like, Tyler Booker, the guard, is interesting. You bring him in to plug and play. You know, that could be interesting as well. They just re-signed Nick Bolton to a new contract at linebacker, so he will be back as well. But we probably should bring in an edge guy to help out Chris Jones a little bit, man. He does freaking everything for that defense, right? Landon Jackson makes a lot of sense for the Chiefs at this spot. I do like that spot. But Josh Connerly Jr. is on the board as well. And I like his game because he's a great pass blocker, right? So 6'4", 315. He's just a solid overall guy, man. And he's 21, so he's young enough that you could develop him. I know they have a lot of developmental tackles, but they were awful in the NFL. So, but bringing in more guys in that room makes some sense. But also, I would like to add an edge defender, man. Landon Jackson was a freak show at the Combine. So you know what, Chiefs fans? There's some offensive line depth later in this draft, but all the monster edge defenders are going to be way, way gone. Princely McMillan, he's on the board as well, 11 sacks. Man, he had monster games that, you know what? I think Landon Jackson could definitely be one of those guys who's like a combine ninja, and then he gets to the NFL and he's not so good. I'm going Princely McMillan to the Chiefs at 31 overall. Now, Philadelphia Eagles fans, you're on the board here, selecting at 32. Tyleik Williams definitely in play for me. He's horrible against the pass, though, and Eagles fans need a D lineman who can get after the quarterback. So I don't necessarily love him. TJ Sanders from South Carolina, definitely a better pass rusher for sure. Numbers all at the top of the class. I love TJ Sanders, man. He could definitely be a very solid player on this D-line and replace Milton Williams' production. TJ Sanders goes to the Philadelphia Eagles at 32 overall, guys. There it is. There's my round one mock draft right before free agency opens. Shedeur Sanders goes to the Giants. Cam Ward goes to the Browns. Some interesting picks here. Loveland goes to the Broncos at 20. The Bills get Derek Harmon. Cowboys fans, you get Luther Burden. Steelers fans, you get Emeka Egbuka. I think this is a solid first round draft, everyone. Let me know in the comments below. Do you like this draft? Do you hate this draft? And let me know where your favorite team is picking and what you would do with their number one selection. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace.